On behalf of the Center for Urban Language Teaching and Research at Georgia State University, I welcome you to the 8th Annual World Language Week. CULTR, as the center is known, is one of 16 federally funded Title VI language resource centers in the United States. CULTR has created a unique identity around serving the needs of all students and the community they represent by helping to promote language learning opportunities as part of 21st century global education. Guided by its core value of access, advocacy, outreach, and research, CULTR has gained a national reputation for innovative approaches to promoting access to language education for all students, regardless of their socioeconomic and ethnic background. I am Mourad Dakhli, Professor of International Business and Director of the Master of International Business at the J. Mack Robertson College of Business here at Georgia State. And I'd like to thank you for being here with us today for the Global Business Panel, which I will be moderating for the next hour. Before introducing the panelists, I'd like to address just a couple of housekeeping and technical questions. First, I would like to remind everyone that all panels this week are being recorded and will be available after the event. All attendees will remain muted throughout the entire session. Our panel discussion of approximately 35 to 40 minutes will be followed by Q&A with all attendees. Students may submit questions throughout the course of the discussion and after the Q&A by clicking on the Q&A icon at the bottom of the screen. If you like questions you see, click the thumbs up icon to promote this question to the top of the list. The CULTR team will enter resource links for you in the chat, so please, thank you for using the Q&A for your questions. Now, let's meet our panelists. I'm going to just mention their names and affiliations, and then I'll give everyone the chance to tell us who they are and what their organizations do. First, we have Ayanna Matthews, President at Gartner Matthews Global Management. Welcome. Brandon Sun, Human Resources Manager at POSCO America Corporation. Welcome, Brandon. Rudy Augsburger, Founder and President, Aracasta. Welcome, Rudy. And Tim Mahoney, former Chief Marketing Officer, Global Chevrolet and Global GM Marketing Operations Leader at General Motors. Welcome, Tim. Let me go ahead and maybe start with you, Ayanna, since I mentioned you first. And I'm going to ask you and the others to go ahead and please introduce your organization, what's its role as far as global business is concerned, and what do you do specifically within that organization?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ayanna Matthews, and I'm the founder and president of Gartner Matthews Global Management. Gartner Matthews Global Management is an international business development firm designed to help companies improve their efficiencies in-house, but primarily to scale their products and services to serve the overseas market. In that market, I help companies understand the value of local talent, doing banking and financing outside of the country, as well as marketing and public relations in that country that they're looking to get into. And my role is that it's mine.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'll go ahead and ask maybe Brandon next.
Yes. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to meet you all, and it's an honor to be here. Let me briefly introduce myself and the company that I'm working for. I was born and raised in South Korea for 22 years and came to the United States back in 2000 to study English as a second language and to get a higher education. I double majors in accounting and business management at Purdue University in 2000. After graduations, I've been working in human resource department for 16 years. And currently I'm working for POSCO America as a general manager in human resource department. Does anyone know about the POSCO? If you have a, what kind of type of product that we produce? I will buy a cup of coffee from the Starbucks.
Steel.
Except for Korean and Mr. Tim Mahoney, former CMO at GM, because the POSCO is a Korean company and GM is one of our valued customers. When I say I work for the POSCO, many people think that I work for Costco. And they asked me about the annual membership fee and the benefits, so on. Oh, yes, I got that a lot. I totally understand because POSCO is a B2B business. You may not have heard our company before, but you may use our products made by POSCO material in various ways in daily life. Our main customers are GM, Ford, Toyota, Honda, Kia, Volkswagen, Mercedes-Benz as an automotive company, Samsung and LG as a home appliance, and John Deere, Bobcat as a heavy-duty machinery. To put it in the simple, 1 of 10 vehicles currently operating in the United States on the road is made by POSCO steel. And most of Samsung and LG products, such as washer, dryers, and refrigerator, are made of our steel. So POSCO, since you are not familiar with our company, let me introduce more detail. The POSCO headquarters is located in South Korea and has 2 big steel mills, one in Pohang and one in Gwangyang. And those 2 steel mills produce 43 million tons per year, and it makes us the 6th largest steel mill company in the world and rank 167th among Fortune Global 500. And total employee currently is 36,000 and 150 business entities in 90 countries around the world. And I'm working in human resources headquarters in Georgia, and I'm in charge of human resources, and my job is to recruit right person in the right place at the right time and train the employee to do their job well and retain them. And good news for audience is that I have open positions in almost all majors: business, accounting, human resource, marketing, investment, engineering, production. And you can find information at our website. So please visit us, POSCOamerica.com, for more information.
Great. I will definitely share that with my students, especially my Master of International Business students. By the way, Brandon, I have to admit I did not know much about the company. I had to do some research, and I was very, very impressed about the scope and the geographic dispersion of the company and how well ingrained in the auto industry and finance. So I'm glad to have you on board.
Thanks for having me.
I'm going to ask, see here, the close one on my right, Tim.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Tim Mahoney. I am retired now, and happily retired, I might add. But for many years, I worked internationally with auto brands like Porsche, Volkswagen, Subaru, which is part of the Toyota group. And even though my last stop on my career was with General Motors, as I often say, playing for the home team, I was the global CMO for the company and responsible for the Chevrolet brand. We operated in 140 countries around the world. I think most people hear a brand like Chevrolet and they think it's something from Kansas, but the reality is it's sold all over the world. And actually, for General Motors, China is the largest market in the world for them, even larger than the home market. I've been in marketing pretty much my entire career in all of the various companies that I've worked for. And I was a language major. So I studied foreign language as an undergrad. Attended the University of Vienna, so learned German. Don't try to test me on Spanish or French, but have studied multiple languages. And for me, language study is more about speaking with another person. It's really about understanding their culture. And that helped me tremendously in my career as I navigated Japanese, German, American, and a variety of other cultures along that journey. So happy to be here, honored to be here. And I'm looking forward to a good session here.
Very well, very well. Thanks, Tim. And
Yep.
Rudy, you're next.
Thanks, Mourad. Yeah, my name is Rudy Alsberger, and I'm the founder and CEO of Aracasta.co, if you want to check it out. It's basically a consulting firm for business development, for international business, focusing on the geographies of Europe, North America, and Latin America. A little bit about myself. I'm actually half German, half Uruguayan. For those who don't know where Uruguay is, it's a small country between Argentina and Brazil. Small country, but World Cup winners twice in soccer. So we do have some recognition. But anyway, my dad worked for the UN, so I grew up all over the place. Trinidad and Tobago, Argentina, Afghanistan, believe it or not, for 2 years at the time when the Russians invaded back in '79. Then I finished high school in Peru, did college in the UK. And my corporate life then began in Siemens, which is the German GE. And I spent 15 years with them. And somehow I could not keep my gypsy roots in place. And I was then sent to the Philippines for a year, back to Germany for 2. I was in China for 3, Uruguay for 3. And then I came to the US for 3 and stayed 20. My kids were all born there. My kids actually all graduated from Georgia State University. And after 15 years corporate, I decided to lay my own shingle and start my own company. I was missing the international piece actually. And that's when I started back in 2006, international business development again. I got kind of tired of the domestic. I speak 4 languages fluently: German, Spanish, Portuguese, and English, obviously. And, I could really use that to a big advantage in international business. I compare it sometimes to becoming a chameleon, where you can blend into the society. It's not just language, it's culture, it's understanding, reading between the lines. And that is a huge asset that I had and was totally unused for so many years. So I brought it back to life, as I said, in 2006, and that's what I continue to do today. So hopefully I can add some value to the conversation today.
Very good, very good. Actually, you all alluded to something that I wanted to ask about, and I want to ask about it because our audience today, many of the students have a keen interest in or curious about language and about culture. And I want to ask all of you if your thoughts on the centrality or importance of a second language in global business. And while you already talked about this, there may be the relationship between language and culture and how that facilitates, global business. So I'll give the next question to anyone who would like to start first. Or I'll pick one.
We're very polite.
Well, I'd be happy to answer that.
Ladies first. Ladies first.
For once, while I speak Spanish, Japanese, Kiswahili, Wolof, and a little bit of German to be dangerous. And what I've always advised people when they're learning a language is that just learning it for business is not enough. It will never be enough. There must be a love and an affinity for that culture, for that people, for their history, where they come from, and their direction that they're trying to move forward in order, as Rudy just alluded to, in order to be successful in being a chameleon in that society. You already stick out, regardless of, if you were born there, lived there, whatever, but you have to, once you fit in and you're able to blend into that society, and you're now seen as one of us instead of one of them, or that person or that American or whatever, that is the beauty of learning the language. One of my life lessons that I learned as a child, because I'm an American, I was born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia, graduated from Mays High School. And my father taught me as a young girl, there are many people that come to this country, Ayana, to pursue their lifelong dreams, to either escape something or they're building more business because they were already successful where they came from. But to speak to the heart of a man, you must speak his mother tongue. And that has been the most profound lesson that I carried with me as I entered into the international business scene. Being able to speak the foreign languages directly as a business consultant, you now eliminate the need for having a translator, which only prolongs meetings. And everyone who's done project management overseas, you know what I'm talking about. It's like, oh my God, this meeting's dragging on because you have to speak, that person has to speak, you have someone else speaking in the middle of it. And so if you're able to just jump right in, understand what the pains are of that organization, offer some valuable suggestions in real time, that makes you that much more valuable. So, so the only benefit, the benefit of being multilingual is immense. You cannot measure it. There's no KPI for it. There's no metrics for it, but it all starts with a soft skill, which is a foreign language, and being very, very good at it and being polite and understanding it.
Very nice. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm going to ask Brandon. I know you mentioned when you were introducing yourself that you had to learn English, right? And you are very successful, obviously. And I would like for you maybe to reflect for a bit about the value of language and how that affected your ability to operate in a global environment.
Yes, sure. Ida, explained pretty well. And let me add to, business aspect of the languages too. As technology advance, enable global business, cultural awareness and the language would play a very important role. Let's think about the best company in the world. First thing I can think of is Apple, Google, Microsoft, NVIDIA, and Tesla. Proudly American company and do business worldwide, right? And Apple's international sale is 76%. NVIDIA 80-40% comes from the overseas market. And in order to do the business internationally, you need to understand their cultures, the languages, and even religions, and reflect that in your business decisions, right? So understanding cultural awareness, the intelligence and languages is important factors now, and it's no longer options, it's the necessity in global business market. And additional, whether in the workplace and personal development, the knowledge of more than one language offer you new horizon of opportunity to expand our cultural understanding. I know that one of our audience, the Rudy Osberg, would be the great example who has rich cultural experience and can speak 6 different languages, native English and Spanish, fluent in German and Portuguese, and basic in the French and Italy. I become his CEO and president and board members and global business executive. Yeah, I'm sure that he can give you great insight and much more about this topic.
Thank you. Thank you. And I know that both Tim and Rudy mentioned language and how important that was in their career. And I would like to ask them if they could add something there to how important it is, especially to our audience listening, for their success in global business, to really be more proactive about language acquisition.
From my side, I think looking backwards, I was a language major, right? And I graduated in the midst of a recession, which sounds familiar, right, for a lot of younger people nowadays, or potentially on the horizon of one. And what I realized back in the 70s was, at the time, I thought maybe I'd made a mistake by studying foreign language, because what I was running up against in business was I didn't have much else to offer other than the fact that I could speak German. At the time, I was pretty good at French as well. But as the career went on, I tapped more into not necessarily the language skill, but basically the sort of cultural understanding and seeing things from a different point of view. And I am absolutely positive that as a result of my language study, I got the top marketing job in North America for Porsche. They found out I spoke German, and literally 3 weeks later, I was on an airplane to Stuttgart. And so it's for me, it really unlocks a lot of doors that probably wouldn't be. I mean, as you travel around the world, most business is conducted in English, but if you really want to scratch underneath and really get to know your counterparts and really be part of not only the corporate culture, but the culture in general, language is an amazing thing. And as I mentioned to some of the other panelists, one of the things I always do when I travel internationally is I always go to a grocery store. When I always go to a supermarket or a farmer's market or something like that, because you really, as Ayana said, you have to love the culture. You have to want to be part of it. And I think one of the advantages and disadvantages of living in the US is it's a big country, and it's really rather unexpected that Americans would have a world perspective, that would speak another language, that would really be interested in what's going on outside the 50 states here. And so I think if you partner a language skill with your other training, this is a very powerful combination that might not immediately pay dividends, but down the road for sure will pay dividends.
I know. And Rudy, I would like for you to add a few thoughts given your experience.
Yes, I'll share something very personal because I think that's, when the stories thick. When I came to the US in 1999, my kids were 3, 5, and 7 and did not speak English. They spoke a little bit of English. English was a second language to them, but obviously they struggled when they came to school to speak the American English. Theirs was a British English. It took them a while, to really get up to speed, but they soon did, to the point where they'll play between themselves in English and they stopped speaking Spanish. And, fast forward 10 years and they're in high school and they're like sick and tired of doing Spanish as a second language. And, my personal experience, when I joined Siemens, over 30 years ago, I got into the fast track of Siemens as a new employee because I had that international experience, that kind of promoted me. And at a minimum, you had to be fluent in 2 languages, preferably 3. 15 years later, I moved to Ericsson. And I was actually the mentor of one of those fast track kids in Ericsson. And at the time, the minimum requirement was 3 fluent languages, written and spoken. So any of you who have an ambition of, becoming a CEO or something like that in the future in a multinational company, know that is the expectation. That was the expectation back in 2003. And if you fast forward to today, 20 years later almost, with the whole globalization, with the whole home working, working through Zoom like we are today. I'm in Madrid, Spain today, by the way. You wouldn't have realized. You're competing against everybody. You're not competing against your own classmates or even other Americans or people in the US. You're competing against Europeans, Indians, Chinese, Latin Americans. And let me tell you, they're all very savvy with languages and trying to do everything they can in order to compete with everybody else. So, my bottom line is languages is going to help you stand above the rest and be more competitive in a global environment.
Very good. Thank you. And I like the different perspectives. You talk about the competitive advantage of language and the utility of it. And I also like Ayana's view of language as a bridge, building connections with others and that altruistic kind of side of it. So I'm glad to see our panel speak to both sides of the value of being able to communicate with the others in their own language. I'm going to switch gears here and talk about one aspect that's very important for our students today, and that's technology, obviously. And when we cannot talk about global business without talking about technology. I'd like to start maybe with, I'll go ahead and start with Tim, if that's okay. I'll start with you for this question.
Okay.
And how do you see technology enabling global business? That's a big research paper right there. But
right.
From your perspective, what aspect of global business have been the most affected with technology?
Yeah. So, I mean, certainly my last role as head of marketing globally, technology was the if you will the platform that we used. Rather than hopping on a plane and flying 14 hours to Shanghai, we spent a lot of time on conference calls and things like that. And in terms of sharing information back and forth, from a design perspective, for example, the Chevy Trailblazer that's out on the street now was part of it was done here, part of it was done in Korea, and so having a global perspective and working across cultures, the technology piece I think is absolutely critical. I remember learning language when you would sit and learning in language labs. I don't know if they still do that anymore, but the only way to practice it was maybe 45 minutes in a class or in a session a few times a week. But now I listen to radio in my car through TuneIn Radio from Germany, and I watch international content and things like that. And I think technology, maybe less so on the business side, but in terms of aiding students' ability to try and immerse themselves into a culture beyond just one class or a couple of classes a week, is incredibly valuable. And so I don't know completely if that answered your question, but certainly technology was incredibly important. Fundamentally, though, we're all human, and so I think the human piece of it is also equally important. Understanding, getting to know your peers as you work across cultures is something that you should be aware of. Yeah.
Very good, very good. I'll go ahead and ask Brendan, and tell me your perspective, Brendan. What is changing in the global business landscape due to technology, and what aspects you think are the most relevant in your context?
Yes, and I totally agree with the team. Then I think the technology that enable us to business internationally are three things. One, computer; two, internet; and three is communication network. It makes possible for the computer to perform fast calculation and store a huge amount of data, right? And also internet and communication network make it possible to communicate all around the world. I can send the email right now to you and you receive it right away. And we carry the small version of computer, the smartphone, right, with us all the time. So now we having the virtual meeting, and it doesn't matter where we are, right? We meeting in June and share the data using the Dropbox. And I think that make us business internationally, and the technology is very important.
Very good, great examples, thank you. Ayana, I'd like to ask you, and from your perspective, how has technology affected what you do?
Oh, technology has actually enhanced what I do. Whereas some markets, the emerging markets, there's never going to be a way to substitute that face-to-face meeting, but being very privy with the technology in lieu of getting to them face-to-face is very helpful. Also, one thing that we haven't touched on is which technology we use, depending on which market that we're engaging with. There are a lot of people who are doing business off of WhatsApp. Some Americans, that's unheard of. What, is this a scam? Sending this information, I'm not, docu-signing and then uploading it on WhatsApp. But guess what? Latin America and some Southeast Asian countries, if you're not privy with all of the capabilities of that platform that they're working off on, it doesn't matter how technologically savvy you are. You still have to make some small adjustments to meet them where they are in order to be successful. And I think that's so wonderful about where we're moving into right now with international business.
Yeah, very good, very good. And before I move, I want to remind our attendees to please type your questions in the Q&A section, and that way we can get to them when we end the discussion with our panelists. And Rudy, your thoughts on technology?
Yeah, I've got a lot because technology is my thing, and especially telecommunications. And especially in telecommunications in the US, we're behind in many aspects. I'll give you the example of Safaricom in Kenya, where they do mobile payments. They've been doing that for over 15 years with a feature phone. They don't even have smartphones. People in Sweden pay for parking, pay for everything with their phone, stuff that you don't see in the US. So we shouldn't think that we're totally advanced in everything. There are other countries that are far more advanced in certain areas. But technology in general, I think, has been the democratization of business in many aspects. If you look back at the days when MP3 began, where people were downloading all the music and everybody could upload music, all of a sudden every independent artist could publish his music. Then Amazon came with a book and everybody could publish their book. And I see technology as democratization big time. And I think COVID has absolutely accelerated that exponentially, where everybody's now remote. And if you think that anybody who's got a smartphone can work remotely and have a call like I'm having right now over my smartphone, everybody is an active employee, regardless where they are. I would think that for the high intellect folks, graduated folks, et cetera, immigration is no longer necessary, for example.
Mhm.
You know, I think for a lot of jobs where we do see immigration coming to the US and other countries, physical presence is important. For software development, for example, it's not necessary. So I see that it does empower a lot of people in any corner of the world where there's internet to be able to participate in business. So I see a massive democratization coming. Again, since COVID, vastly accelerated.
Interesting. If you don't mind me following up on that and maybe seeking feedback from the panels, following that line of argument, do you see any drawbacks in terms of the role of technology and what technology is changing the international business landscape or the economic situation, developing emerging frontier economies or otherwise?
I cannot speak against technology. I truly love and believe in technology. And we got to get used to it and move forward. And I think the pains that will occur are typically disrupting, you know, old traditional green-walled environments. So I don't see that as a problem at all. I think we need to change. I think people need to be able to change faster and quicker. And, you know, you hear a lot of people today talking about, you know, let's go back to the days of before COVID. That's not coming back. There's no way that's coming back. That was a massive thing, you know, globally. It affected everybody, you know, not just you and me. You know, it didn't matter how educated you were, how rich you were, how poor you were, or in which country you lived. It affected everybody. So there's no turning back on that one. Will there be pain points? Absolutely. I mean, will there be people being let go because you get cheaper people elsewhere? Probably yes. You know, the positive is, for example, it's really hard to recruit IT people in the US right now. So you can outsource that. It's a good thing, you know. The thing is, what if everything becomes outsourced and it's no longer here? You know, what do the IT developers do here? So it's a balance. And, you know, I think it will help, you know, other aspects, like I said, immigration. Maybe immigration slows down, you know, which is a good thing. So, yeah, I see technology always in a positive way.
Absolutely. And I know, Ayana, I sense a different perspective from you. So I know you talk more about the relational aspect, the building bridges aspect. Do you see technology as enabler, or do you see certain pitfalls there as technology kind of increases as far as how global business is conducted?
Yeah, so again, going back from the perspective of engaging and interacting, some markets are still very traditional in the fact that, you know, how we used to be here in America. I want to know you. I want to see, touch, and feel you. I need to know with whom I'm doing business. I want to feel comfortable. You know, hey, you know, Jack's my guy, Yana's my girl, right? So, but there are ways in which we can use technology. And to be honest, I don't see the students of Georgia State Universities falling into this pitfall. They're all very technologically savvy. You guys have the resources there. You guys are encouraging and leading and directing them along the right path, even if it's indirect, right? So I see that maybe some of these pitfalls may fall with a certain group of people, not necessarily a demographic. It's more of a mindset. So when you have the mindset that, you know what, this has to get done in order for me to make my business be successful, or in order for me to be successful, and in order for me to compete on this global platform, then you as a driven person will make those necessary adjustments, and you will be successful. So that's the only reason why. I mean, I still believe in soft skills. I believe in, you know, personal relationships. Nothing's going to replace that. But technology in some cases has enhanced us to be able to meet people where, you know, oh, I can only meet you maybe next year, or maybe once I make that trip to Europe, and now I can meet you right now because I just put in a certain hashtag and found you, and we have similar interests. So yeah, I don't see any downfall in technology at all.
Very good.
Let me add, Mourad, let me add a little comment if you don't mind,
yes,
because I totally agree with everything she said. And I sounded a little bit robotic, technology and Zoom and what have you. All business is done on a personal level. It is, I buy from people I like. I learned that from an IBM exec many years ago. And it didn't matter if it was a server or if it was a hot dog, I go to buy from the people I like. And that is irreplaceable. And, it is personable. And I would even say, that after 3 months of not seeing somebody, your level of trust goes down. And when you meet them again, it fills up again. It's like a rechargeable battery, it is extremely important to have that personal contact because, again, you're doing business between people.
Very good. Very well said. Tim or Brandon, if you would like to add anything, otherwise I can.
Sure. Technology seems to advance so fast, and it is very difficult for me to keep up with all the new technology, everyday changes. At work, the first thing I do is to turn on the computer, right? Check my email, review resumes, conduct the interview, make the job offer, train the new employee, calculate the employee work hours, pay salary, provide benefit to the employee, 401k, health insurance, and approve a vacation, leave of absence, so many things. But when you hear my daily activities, seems to be a lot, right? But, but then I mentioned the task done by a single platform, the Human Resource Information System, which is internet-based, right? So I think that as software and technology advance, it makes HR job simple yet effective, which increase the efficiency to reduce the overhead cost and ultimately increase the productivity.
Very well, very well.
Can I just, I wanted to add just one thing quickly, as I would connect with my colleagues around the world, we, as Americans, I think sometimes tend to think of there's only one way to do it. And Ayana mentioned it earlier, if you're talking to colleagues and friends in South America or even Europe, it's WhatsApp. But if you're talking to friends in Japan or Korea, quite often it's Line. And if you're talking to your Chinese colleagues, it's WeChat. And so I don't miss the days necessarily when I would get up and have to check 4 or 5 different platforms to kind of see what was going on. But even with technology, there are cultural nuances to how people want to communicate and connect with one another. And the platforms are numerous. So I think we're not quite there yet where everyone uses one particular platform, and I don't think we will ever be at that point. But I think it certainly enables this sort of one-on-one communication. And even now that I've been out of the corporate world for about 3 years, I still am in touch with my friends using these various communication platforms.
One thing, shameless plug for Georgia State. As we speak right now, our students are working in teams, in virtual teams, with peers from Morocco, Tunisia, South Africa, Brazil, and I believe this semester we have Egypt and Portugal. So part of their assignment is to manage time zones and cultural differences and compromising, and coming up with a consensus on a project solution. So that is one way we are trying to kind of develop the technology-ready, future adaptable skill set that hopefully Brandon will appreciate in his company. I would like to ask you to be fortune tellers and look in the future. 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. How do you expect? What would you expect to see global business to look like? What would there be even a distinction between domestic or global business, or how would you see this in the future? As far down the road as you can see.
It's a great question. I'll let someone else go first on the answer.
Let me, answer your questions regarding the futures. In global business. In the futures, the meaning of border between the country, I think, gonna be weakened, and the company become more global. So, in other words, that it seems like the company can mean more than the country. Like Apple market cap is 2.2 trillion. Now it's higher than most of the country's GDP. It's greater than France, Italy, and Canada, of course, Korea too. And it makes more important of our daily life. So I use Microsoft Office on their computer at work, and people can live without Apple, wear the Ralph Lauren clothes and Nike shoes, and watch Netflix and YouTube at home, right? These things affect your life and the way of living. So during the past COVID pandemic period, we were forced to experience the taste of futures, whether we liked or not. The school class and the work meeting has been conducted remotely by June, and work from home has been mainstream, right? So I think the future will be made in the virtual world of the metaverse based on the internet basis. And this is the reason why Facebook, one of the first company to lead and prepare for this, changed their name to Meta, right?
Yes.
They invest huge amount of money in R&D, even though they are not making any money at this point. But I think they prepare for the future.
Very nice, very nice.
I absolutely love that perspective. I mean, very eye-opening.
Yes.
I mean, if you look at Elon Musk, you know, today, you know, meddling in the Ukraine war, I mean, as if he was a country. So I loved your perspective.
Yeah, interesting. So MNEs, multinational corporation or multinational enterprises, will become much more significant than nation states, as they, you know, some of them are already, obviously, as you mentioned, Apple and the sheer size. Reminds me of the case of banana republics. I'm not sure if many people know what the banana republics used to stand for. It's all these small islands that used to grow bananas, and some of the companies, Chiquita and others, own the banana, which means they own the country. So it's all what you're saying, Brand. It's almost like we are returning to some of those type of realities, if I understand it correctly. Tim, I hope you had enough time to reflect on the question, and I would love to hear your take on it.
Yeah. Now, you know, in my last role, where we were operating in 140 different countries, and I think this is the trend, right? Or perhaps it's the trend. We followed a strategy that we used to call globalization, where we would lay out a global strategy from the center of the brand, if you will, but really allowing for sort of local adaptation around the world. And I think we'll never get to the point where we're all the same, right? And how we think. Maybe we will. I don't know if 20 or 30 years horizon is quick enough for that to happen, where we're just citizens of Earth rather than citizens of the US and citizens of Europe or China or whatever. But I think global business now is really transcending borders. And I think it comes from really satisfying human needs. We used to very much focus on the fact that as people, we're all pretty much the same. We like to focus on the differences, but we always said they were about 80% the same and 20% different. And I think those differences are becoming less and less. But from a business perspective, from a brand perspective, having a global strategy is important. That's why you see the success of brands, particularly like Apple, and I guess you could put Meta in that group. Although I'm not a huge Meta fan, I'm not much of a social media fan anymore. I sat on their client advisory board, so I've seen a lot of it first up. But I think the really truly successful global brands follow that strategy of having a global strategy and then allowing the markets individually to adapt it, if you will, based on their local understanding of their local culture.
Very well, very well. Let's see here. I want to see if we have any questions. We can continue the conversation, depending if there are any questions that I see. I don't see questions in the, maybe we actually covered everything that the students are interested in. If not, I would like to give the chance while we see if there are any questions to Ayana, and I want to see your perspective on the future of business as we look down the road maybe decades from now?
So one of my hints into the future, and I'm referencing this after living in Japan twice, once as a university student and working as an English language teacher, but how Japan has been able to shut down for lengthy periods of time, building up their home team brands. I call it like, the Sonys, the Hitachis, the Hondas, like all of these household brand names. While, for example, during COVID, they just reopened up their doors, right? And so what I'm foreseeing, like I said, just a little bit of a glimpse, that some countries will find themselves in a position of focusing on their core competency. What is our country really, really good at producing? What can we outsource? What can we export? And what can we make a lot of money doing that and being very successful? And then that way, one country might say, hey, let's look to America for fill in the blank because they're really, really good at that. That's one of my ideas as we move forward globally, as we're competing, that we're actually going to find ourselves kind of zooming out. Because as we mentioned before, with these household names, the Netflix, the Hulus, the Nikes, the Apples, yeah, these are all things that we all can use worldwide. But as a nation, how do we sustain our citizens, making them successful, making them be proud, making them have jobs within their countries? And I'm just saying that as a way to do that.
Very well, very well. Thank you. Brandon, would you like to add anything to that discussion? If not, I can ask my next question and I can open it to everyone. If you had one advice.
Wait. I had a comment to that.
Oh, I think maybe you're the one I skipped it.
Yeah, I'm the one you skipped.
Okay. You're not going to be skipped.
No. I'm totally supportive of what Ayana said, and that is to me, the ultimate world balance, where countries stick to what they're good at and let the others do what they are good at instead of subsidizing that business in their own country. And that's a problem we have with the first world is, for example, subsidizing agriculture in Europe or in the US. How can they be producing avocados in California, for God's sake? They should be focusing on what they do best and import the avocados from Mexico. I understand there's politics involved, et cetera, but to me, utopia would be let every country do what they do best, and, get rid of the World Bank and all that, people paying, foreign debts, which are ridiculous. That would be utopia for me. But, as far as the trend going forward, I spoke to it a little bit already. And, there's this term called, digital nomads now.
Yeah.
And, again, this whole Zoom and working from home thing is allowing people to live anywhere in the world. They just need to be connected. And so these people, I think this is going to be a trend. I think it's going to be a massive movement, call it the new globalization or globalization 2.0, where people are going to be picking the companies they want to work for, the countries they want to live in, the healthcare they want, et cetera. They're not going to be stuck in the boundaries of a certain specific country with their laws, their taxes, their healthcare, and what have you. People are starting to realize, I can choose. I can leave, I can work anywhere. I can pay my taxes anywhere. I can pay my healthcare anywhere. So all of a sudden you're in control, and that's what the new generation loves.
Yeah.
So, I think we're going to see a lot of that by 2050.
Good point. There is actually I believe it's a Mercer study that looked at the changing nature of the workforce and how it's, I think they call it contingent talent, where basically it's a talent on demand, and there's like a buying and selling negotiation on both sides, the employer and the employee, with multiple relationships at the same time. Very intriguing. We do have a couple of questions here in the Q&A section, so I'll go ahead and read them, and then I'll let you jump in and answer if you feel that's the question you would like to answer. The first one is from Iram. We know we need 2 years of foreign language in high school in order to graduate. Students are not continuing to the next level of their language studies because of several reasons. how can we motivate them to continue to their levels 3 and 4 or higher so they can become more proficient before going to college? Tim, I was thinking of you.
It was funny. I was thinking about that because when I was 12, I had to pick what language I wanted to study going into middle school, and there were three choices. There was Spanish, French, and German. And the first teacher that I had was quite how should I say, made quite an impact on me. He made language study something more than grammar, and he made it interesting. He made me want to dig further into the culture. And my second language teacher that I had was just the opposite. It really was all about reciting stuff and to be honest, really uninteresting things. And so maybe to answer the question, you have to find, I think, something that excites you and and drives you to continue the exploration of that language, but also of that culture. And because otherwise, I think people will bail. They'll check the box and say that I've done my 2 years and off I go. And part of that, I think, is incumbent on the teacher themselves to create those pathways to get people more engaged and paint a story about how important language study is to life and in this case, of course, to business. But I'm empathetic to that, right? And especially as language programs are under pressure, where they sort of get cut. I think the only way to do it is to excite and engage, and it's a little bit of a marketing problem more than anything else, I think, to turn the students on.
Yeah, interesting. I'd like to go to the next question, and then we can come back and see if anyone has anything else to add to these. And I think this question, I will say, Brandon, if you could address the second one. It talks about careers. What are the most important qualities in early career in global business? Is there anything like, if I had known then what I know now? What advice would you give students so that they develop those qualities that are critical in global business careers?
Okay. Yeah, I agree with the teams, and the practical advice that I can give to I know that the high school and the college students are the audience today, right? So I recommend to get higher educations. I think the best way to build a human capacity in the global business environment is to go to college. For the high school student, go to college, to find the field of interest for the freshmen and sophomore, and to have the expertise in major for junior and senior students. A good university like GSU has great professors and facility, right? And rich resources and network. So, according to the statistic last year, the average salary of 20 to 27 years old graduating high school is $30,000. And the same age graduating from the university is $52,000, right? And also people with a higher education has a stable job, higher salary, and live 7 years longer due to employee benefits, such as health insurance and 401k retirement plan provided by company. So I think that alone is the reason for college is a wide choices.
Very nice, very good, very good. And I'd like to, we have about 5 minutes left, and I'd like to give everyone the chance. And if you were to give one advice, and I think our discussion of careers is something that I know the students are very interested in and have a keen connection to. If you were to give one advice, whether it's related to something we talked about today or something that is not, what would that be?
I'd like to start with answering that.
Yeah.
So, and actually it's going to address the two questions at one time. Number one, students want to be motivated by having the flexibility to do what they want, having the flexibility to live where they want, set their own schedules. And they also want to be having successful careers. And one key thing that I would advise is while you're at Georgia State University or whatever college that you're joining in from, make your networks now. These international students that you're taking classes with, make friends with them. Your professors, your directors, your the leaderships of your foreign language programs, make true, honest connections with them now. They're already plugged into the industry or the country that you're in your future, you don't even know you may even end up being in. So utilize your network on the university level now if you choose to, it shouldn't even be an option. Use them now. These are going to be your lifelong friends. These are going to be the people writing letter recommendations for you. These are going to be the people that's going to be able to vouch for you because they know you. Come 10, 20 years from now, that's how long that they've been knowing you. And that's a part of the trust that they can make of you as a recommendation or referral when you come to start joining businesses or, like in my case, have initiated your own. And so that would be my key thing. Just start your honest networks today.
Excellent, thank you. Rudy, what would that advice be?
To me, it's all about being competitive. Just studying languages is not going to be enough. I think you need, some kind of core competency. I think Tim alluded to that as well. I mean,
Yeah.
he did the languages thing, but be an engineer and have languages and have experience and have this. I mean, to be multifaceted. If you're a student and you think just because you have a degree, you're going to get hired tomorrow and you've got a lifelong, top paying job, you're dreaming. That's not the case. Again, I mentioned it earlier. You're competing against a global workforce, whether you like it or not. Yeah. And if you're going to get surprised when you're 28 or 35 and you're made redundant by a robot or what have you, you better have some other skills. Language is one that you will need. I mean, I think everybody here said it's only going to get more international, more global, than it is today. It's not going in the other direction. So be prepared, and grab as many weapons in life as you can, and language is one of them.
Very good, very good. Any last thoughts anybody would like to share?
I would just add, wealth is not about money. Wealth is about choice. And having choices makes you more valuable in business, makes you happier. And language study increases exponentially the amount of choices that you're going to have. So I always come back to that. I think people chase the dollar or the yen or pound or whatever, or euro. But at the end of the day, it really is about having the flexibility and staying to a certain extent, more than a certain extent, to what Rudy was saying. Education's a lifelong process, and you have to constantly engage and stay fresh. And it comes from an intellectual curiosity, I think, that language study can bring to you, and a joy that it can bring to you. So it's about choice, and language is a big part of that.
Very good. Some good, food for thought. Brendan's idea about the centrality of education moving beyond high school and beyond 4 years, and Ayana's talk about networks. And actually, I do that in my class. We got to actually make them form LinkedIn groups in the classrooms as part of building that network. And I've seen over the last 10 or 12 years, they become each other buyers and suppliers, and sometimes on LinkedIn you see them attend certain conferences together or certain events. So that is very, very important. And of course, the idea of building a competitive advantage. You are competing at a global scale, as Rudy and Tim mentioned, and that is one way you can distinguish yourselves. Well, thank you to the panelists. This concludes today's Global Business Panel. On behalf of CULTR, I thank you for joining us. A reminder